The Zirconian tavern on the edge of the orbital station was alive with noise. Thick smoke hanging above rows of tables where alien merchants and mercenaries drank fire ale until they roared with laughter or collapsed in their seats. The air buzzing with tension and heat, and in the middle of it all, a single human worked quietly, carrying trays of glowing mugs with the steady steps of someone who had lived too long in places that wanted him gone. His name was Chun, once a soldier of the Terran Marines, now a simple waiter, blending into the crowd as best he could. Though humans were rare here, and every alien eye seemed to follow him like he was some strange relic of the past. Jung-hoon, his old war brother turned bartender, muttered for him to keep his head down, to just serve the drinks and not draw attention. But fate had other plans, because at one table near the center, an alien girl named Sarah was already far too drunk. Her bright skin flushed purple under the neon lights, her friends laughing as she swayed in her seat, daring each other to speak louder, to act bolder, until her sharp eyes fell on the human waiter moving past with his tray. "Hey," she slurred, pointing at him with a crooked smile. A human, serving drinks like a servant. How strange, and her companions laughed, their voices sharp with mockery, but Chun ignored them, as he had ignored 1,000 insults before, setting down mugs with calm precision, shoulders stiff but controlled. Yet Sarah, driven by drink and curiosity, would not be ignored. She stumbled up from her chair, her movements unsteady, and blocked his path with a sway of her hips, her silver bangles clinking as she leaned forward, staring at him as if he were a puzzle. "What do you hide under that plain shirt, human?" She teased, her words louder than the music, and when he did not answer, she suddenly reached out, gripping the cloth at his chest with alien strength and tearing it down the middle in one drunken motion. The sound of ripping fabric cut through the tavern like a blade, and for a moment everything froze: the laughter, the music, the arguments, because beneath his simple shirt was not a weak man's chest, but a map of scars, deep lines carved into flesh, some burned, some stitched, each one speaking of battles survived. Across his skin were also faint sigils, old Terran military marks burned into him during campaigns long forgotten by many, but not by the Zirconian Guild, not by those who remembered the Terran soldiers who had once stood unbroken against their rule. Sarah staggered back, her drunken haze pierced by shock, her eyes wide as she stared at the living proof before her. Her friends fell silent, their laughter caught in their throats, because they too recognized what they saw. This was no ordinary human, no nameless servant. This was a man who had stood in the fire of war and survived. Jung-hoon dropped the glass he was cleaning. Seo-yeon the medic looked up sharply from her corner seat, and in the shadows at the back of the tavern, Zex, the guild enforcer, leaned forward, his cold eyes narrowing as he recognized the scars of a Terran Marine, his lips curling into a thin smile that promised trouble. Chun did not flinch, did not raise his voice, but only pulled the remains of his shirt back together, his face calm though his eyes were hard as steel, and he said nothing because there was nothing to say. The scars spoke for him. Sarah, suddenly sobered by what she had revealed, covered her mouth with trembling fingers, her earlier mockery vanishing into silence, replaced by a strange respect and fear that tangled inside her chest. The tavern remained hushed, the weight of the moment heavy, until Chun simply turned and walked back to the bar, his steps steady, as if he carried no shame, only the truth of survival. But the damage was done, for now every eye in the tavern knew the truth. The human was not a harmless servant, but a scarred warrior in exile, and whispers spread like fire among the crowd, whispers that would reach the ears of the guild before the night ended. And in that silence, Sarah realized her drunken joke had pulled open not only a shirt, but the beginning of something far greater, something that would change all of their lives forever. The tavern never fully returned to its noise that night, because the image of Chun's scars lingered in every mind. Even after he pulled on an old jacket that Yung-hoon tossed at him and went back to serving drinks in silence, his face calm, but his eyes distant, as if he had already accepted that the secret he kept so carefully had slipped into the open. And Sarah sat back at her table with her head in her hands, a fire-ale haze burning off as shame and curiosity twisted inside her chest. She had mocked him, ripped his shirt in a drunken dare, and instead of weakness, she had found strength. Scars that whispered of survival in battles she could not even imagine. And when she looked up, she saw that Chun carried them with a quiet dignity, not boasting, not ashamed, simply existing as if every wound was just another line in a story too heavy to speak aloud. Her friends whispered nervously, some muttering that she had gone too far, others insisting the human must be dangerous, and one by one they left the tavern, unwilling to sit under the heavy silence that followed him. But Sarah stayed, her wide eyes locked on him, because something about those scars would not let her go. Later, when the crowd thinned and only a few stubborn drinkers remained, she gathered her courage and approached the bar where Yung-hoon was cleaning mugs, his sharp gaze warning her to stay away, but she stood anyway, swaying slightly, though her voice was sober now. "Why does he carry marks like that?" she asked quietly, and Yung-hoon's jaw tightened as he muttered, "Not your story to take." She frowned, frustrated, and turned to Chun, who placed another tray down and met her gaze with a calm, unreadable look. "Please," she whispered, her earlier arrogance gone, replaced with something almost like respect. "Tell me, how did a human survive battles like those?" Chun shook his head, his voice low and even. "The scars don't matter. What matters is what's left of the man carrying them." And with that he turned away, but the words only deepened her curiosity, because no alien she had ever met would speak with such quiet certainty. Co Yan, who had been watching from a corner table, finally approached, her medical kit strapped across her shoulder, and she pulled Sarah aside, her voice soft but sharp. "Those scars aren't just wounds. Some are burns from guild chains, some are cuts from blades, some are marks left by experiments the Zarkonians once ran on human soldiers. He survived all of it. He doesn't show them to inspire pity. He shows them because hiding them would mean shame. And he has none." Sarah's throat tightened, guilt washing over her, and she bowed her head, whispering, "I didn't mean to humiliate him." Seo Yan gave her a long look and then nodded. "Then prove it. Don't treat him as a spectacle. Treat him as a man." Sarah nodded quickly, determined. But before she could speak again, the tavern doors slid open, and 3 shadowed figures entered, their armor marked with the jagged crest of the Zircon Guild. They didn't sit, didn't order drinks, only watched Chun with predator's eyes, their murmurs like knives in the silence. Yung-hoon stiffened, his hand drifting under the counter where a hidden blaster was taped, and Chun felt the tension, but forced himself to stay calm, continuing his work as if nothing had changed. Sarah noticed the way the guild mercenaries looked at him, not like he was prey, but like he was already marked, and she understood with a sinking heart that her drunken act had done more than tear his shirt. It had exposed him to hunters. She stepped closer, whispering urgently, "They are here for you, aren't they?" Chun gave her a quiet look, neither confirming nor denying, but his hand brushed against the hidden knife at his belt, and that was answer enough. Sarah swallowed hard, realizing the danger she had drawn onto him, and for the first time in her life, she wanted not to mock, not to tease, but to protect someone else's dignity. The mercenaries left after a few minutes, their message clear, and the tavern air grew thick again with fear. When they were gone, Sarah finally whispered, "I'm sorry for what I did. I wanted to laugh at you, but now I only want to understand." Chun regarded her silently for a long moment, then said with quiet firmness, "Then understand this. Humans don't survive because we're stronger. We survive because we refuse to kneel, no matter the chains." His words sank into her chest like fire, and she realized that the truth underneath his shirt was not just scars, but a strength that no alien pride could match. The next day, the tavern felt different. Quieter, every customer whispering as Chun worked. His jacket zipped tight over the ripped shirt, but everyone who had seen the scars remembered. And now rumors spread like smoke through the orbital station, reaching ears they should never have reached. And Sarah returned too, this time sober, her steps careful, her eyes steady with a determination she had not carried before. She walked up to him as he cleaned a table, her voice soft but clear. "You should not hide what you are," she said, but Chun shook his head without looking at her. "The less they know, the longer I live," he answered, and though his tone was flat, Sarah felt the weight of a truth forged in too many battles. She sat down, refusing to leave, pressing him with questions, until finally he sighed and set the cloth aside, leaning against the table as Jung-hoon glared from the bar. "You want the truth?" Chun asked, his voice low but sharp. "Those scars are not from glory. They are from survival. I fought on the Zarkonian front when humans were hunted like beasts. I lost my squad, my home, everything I carried. When the war ended, I chose silence. A quiet life. These scars are not stories. They are reminders." Sarah's throat tightened at his words, and before she could respond, a sneer rang across the tavern as two young Zarkonian nobles, friends of hers, laughed loud enough for all to hear. "Look at Sarah, speaking with a human like he is noble." One jeered. "She tore his shirt and now she wants his stories? Pathetic." She flushed with shame, her fists tightening. But instead of retreating, she turned on them, snapping. Better to respect a scarred man who lived with honor than to sit in comfort, mocking what you don't understand. The tavern gasped, silence falling as the nobles stared at her in shock. Because no one defended a human in public. Not here, not under guild eyes. And as if the words had summoned them, the tavern doors crashed open and 6 Zircon mercenaries marched in, their jagged armor glinting under the neon lights, blasters across their chests, and behind them strode Zex himself. Tall and broad, his skin marked with ritual cuts, his eyes burning as they locked on Chun. "There he is," Zex said with a cruel grin, voice booming across the room. "The scarred human, the thief of survival. You thought you could hide, but now you will answer to the guild." The mercenaries spread through the tavern, tables crashing as customers fled. But Chun stood firm, his jaw tightening, his eyes steady like iron. While Jung-hoon reached under the bar for the hidden weapon, and Min-jun stumbled in from the back, grease still on his hands, cursing under his breath. Sarah stood frozen, guilt crashing into her like a wave. Her drunken hand had torn open the truth, and now death walked through the door to claim him. "Leave him," she whispered desperately, stepping in front of Chun, her arms spread, though her hands shook. Zex laughed, the sound sharp and cold. "A noble girl protecting a human waiter? How amusing. Step aside, child, before you share his punishment." But Chun's hand came gently to her shoulder, steadying her, and he stepped forward, his voice calm, though his every muscle was coiled. "If it is me you want, then face me," he said, and before Zex could respond, the first mercenary lunged. The fight exploded in an instant, tables shattering, glasses flying, beams flashing as Chun moved with the precision of a soldier reborn. Every strike controlled, every movement born of discipline, not rage. He ducked under a blow, drove his elbow into a mercenary's chest, ripped the blaster free, and fired in a clean arc, dropping another. Jung-hoon vaulted the bar, covering his flank. Min-jun swung a broken stool like a hammer. Seo-yeon dragged Sarah and the others to cover. The tavern burned with chaos, shouts and blasts echoing. Yet through it all, Chun fought steady, scars alive again in the fire of battle. And when the last mercenary fell broken across a table, only Zex remained, stepping forward with his grin widening, his voice promising blood. "You've not forgotten how to fight, human. Good, because I came here not for capture. I came here for war." Sarah's heart pounded. Her breath caught as Chun tightened his grip on the stolen blaster, standing tall despite the odds. And in that moment she understood. The truth beneath his shirt was not only scars, but a strength that would never bow, not even to the guild's shadow. The brawl in the tavern had ended with smoke. Shattered glass and unconscious mercenaries sprawled across the floor. But Zex had not been defeated. He had retreated only to return with law on his side. And the next morning, Chun was dragged in chains through the crowded corridors of the orbital station toward the Zarkonian Tribunal Hall, a towering chamber of black stone and neon banners where alien judges sat on raised platforms, their voices cold and sharp as they announced his crime. A human who raised his hand against the guild, a relic who dares carry scars of war today, his fate will be decided. The crowd jeered, many demanding his execution, others whispering nervously as they stared at him with wide eyes. But Chun walked with a soldier's calm, his steps steady even as chains clinked around his wrists, his gaze fixed forward. Sarah pushed through the crowd, her heart heavy with guilt, because she knew her drunken action had set all of this in motion. Yet her shame did not stop her feet. She would not let him stand alone. Seo-yin and Jung-hoon were already there, trying to argue with the guards. Min-jun muttering angrily as he tried to work the controls of the hall's outer doors. But all were silenced when Zex strode in with his jagged armor gleaming, his grin wide as he raised his voice for all to hear. "This human is no servant," he declared, pointing at Chun. "He is a dangerous soldier, a scarred enemy who should have been purged. His scars are proof that he defied us once, and he dares to live still. There is only one sentence: death." The hall erupted with shouts. But before the judges could answer, Sarah found herself stepping forward, her hands shaking, yet her voice carrying louder than she thought possible. "Wait," she cried. "I was the one who revealed him. I tore his shirt, I mocked him, and I saw the truth with my own eyes. He is not dangerous because of his scars. He is strong because he survived them, because he carries them with dignity instead of hate." The crowd gasped, shocked that a noble alien girl would speak in defense of a human. But she stood taller, her eyes fixed on Chun, and for the first time she spoke not with drunken teasing, but with respect. "I thought I would shame him, but instead I saw the truth. No chain, no scar broke him. And that is why you fear him, because he proves what freedom looks like." The judges murmured, their long fingers tapping against consoles, uncertain now as the weight of her words spread. Zex snarled, furious, and barked at her. "You dare defend him? He is nothing." But Chun, still bound in chains, finally lifted his voice, his tone calm but firm, echoing through the chamber. "You want proof?" he said, and slowly he pulled his torn shirt open again, showing every scar to the crowd, not hiding, not ashamed. "Here it is. Each mark is a story of pain, yes, but also of survival. You call them weakness. I call them reminders that no matter what you did, I did not break." His words struck like a hammer, the chamber falling silent as he continued. "I do not ask for mercy. I ask only this: understand that freedom cannot be chained. If you kill me now, another will stand. If you brand me as property, I will still be a man. That is what my scars mean. Even some of the judges leaned back, uneasy, because never had a human spoken with such calm certainty in this hall. Sarah felt her chest tighten, tears stinging her eyes, because she realized the truth was not just in the scars, but in the strength of the man who bore them without fear. Zex roared, enraged at the hesitation, and he leapt forward, his blade flashing as he screamed, "Enough talk! The guild decides with blood." Chaos erupted as guards rushed forward, but Jung-hoon and Min-jun smashed through the side doors. Seo Yan, hurling smoke, charges across the chamber. And in the confusion, Shun broke his chains with one violent twist. His arms free again as he met Zex's charge head-on. The clash shook the hall, sparks flying, and Sarah was pulled aside by Seo Yan as the crew fought to drag Chun toward escape. Even as alarms screamed and the crowd scattered, Sarah's voice carried above it all. "I tore your shirt to shame you, Chun. Instead, you showed me what it means to stand free. For that, I will never forget." And as they fled into the smoke, she knew her words were not only for him, but for herself in defending him. She had found her own freedom, too. The tribunal hall still echoed with alarms as Chun and his crew fought their way through smoke-filled corridors. Sarah clutching her younger cousin, who had been swept into the chaos. Her heart pounding as fear and awe tangled inside her chest. And behind them, the thunder of armored boots grew louder, because Zex was not finished, his rage burning hotter than the fires that now licked the banners of the guild. Chun led the way with the calm precision of a soldier, each step measured, each turn chosen. His scars bared beneath the torn shirt as if they were armor themselves. And when they burst out into the docking bay, the bright glow of shuttle lights cut across the haze. But standing between them and freedom was Zex himself, plasma blade humming in his hand, his jagged armor reflecting the flames, his sneer cruel. "You can run through halls, human," he growled, his voice booming so the crowd of frightened onlookers could hear, "but you cannot escape the guild's judgment. Today I carve your scars deeper until nothing is left but ash." Chun pushed Sarah gently behind him, his hand steady on her shoulder as he stepped forward, facing Zex alone, his voice carrying like steel across the dock. "My scars are not weakness," he said firmly. "They are proof I survived you once, and I will again." The crowd murmured, alien faces pale with shock, because a human speaking like that, unafraid before a guild enforcer, was unheard of. Zex roared and lunged, his blade striking in blinding arcs. But Chun moved with discipline, ducking low, blocking with forearms hardened by years of combat, countering with swift, efficient strikes that staggered even the monstrous enforcer. The clash rang like thunder, sparks raining as steel met plasma, each blow a test of will as much as strength. Jung-hoon and Min-jun fought to hold off guild soldiers swarming the edges, Seo Yan shielding Sarah and the boy, but all eyes were fixed on the duel at the center. Zex struck with fury. Chun answered with precision, and though his muscles ached and blood already ran from a cut at his side, Chun refused to fall, his jaw clenched, his eyes burning with the fire of a man who had lived through worse. At last he twisted Zex's arm, wrenched the blade free, and drove the enforcer to his knees, the weapon humming inches from his throat. The bay went silent, every soldier frozen, waiting for the kill. But Chun held, his chest heaving, his scars gleaming with sweat and blood, and instead of finishing it, he raised his voice so all could hear. "You call me dangerous because I survived your chains. But hear this, freedom is not something you give or take. Freedom lives here." He pressed his scarred hand over his chest. "And you cannot kill it." The soldiers shifted uneasily, some lowering their weapons, because his words carried more weight than threats. Sarah stepped forward then, her voice trembling but strong, echoing his truth. "He is not a relic. He is proof. You fear him because he shows that a human can suffer and still stand tall. I saw his truth when I tore his shirt, and I will never kneel before your lies again. Her courage spread like fire through the crowd, whispers turning to shouts as even bystanders dared to nod, dared to believe. Zex snarled, humiliated, but bound by guild law because Chun had fought and won in front of witnesses. And mercy shown on record carried more power than execution. He could not rise without breaking the very rules he claimed to serve. Chun dropped the blade at Zex's feet and turned away, his voice calm. Keep your chains. They cannot touch me. With Yunghun and Minjun clearing the path, the crew retreated to their freighter, engines screaming as they lifted into the stars. Sarah at the viewport, clutching her cousin's hand, her eyes shining with tears as she watched the guild station fall behind them. She turned to Chun, her voice soft but full of meaning. When I ripped your shirt, I thought I would find shame. Instead, I found strength no one could take away. That truth. It shocked me. But now I carry it too. Chun gave her a small nod, weary but steady, his scars catching the glow of the ship's lights, not as wounds, but as marks of defiance. And as hyperspace opened before them in a flood of silver light, Sarah realized that the human's answer to cruelty was not silence, not vengeance, but the simple refusal to kneel. And that was a lesson strong enough to shake the stars themselves.